What's up, guys? Welcome to Lawsplaining the Interwebs. I am your host, Nick Rekieta. I am an attorney in central Minnesota. I own my own law firm. That is Rekieta Law. If you're ever in trouble in Minnesota, look me up and I can hopefully help you out. Tonight, I have just a very short update on some music news, music legal news. Rapper DMX has been sentenced to 1 year in prison for tax fraud, as you can see here by the Reuters headline. And of course, they are credited with this photo. I'll scroll down so I can actually get the credit in the video just to make sure. But yeah, that is him. Not the DMX I remember seeing, but he is pushing, I think he's 47 years old now. So he's getting up there in years. Anyway, let's take a quick look at his indictment, and I'll talk very quickly about what's going on. So, this is his sealed indictment. Don't ask how we have it. It's on the internet. Who cares? Earl Simmons is his legal name, also known as DMX or X. Count 1, corruptly endeavoring to obstruct and impede the due administration of the Internal Revenue Law. So you have tax evasion is one crime, and then you have corruptly endeavoring to do tax evasion. That's another crime. He's charged with corruptly endeavoring. And the reason we start with that is because it's interesting to the background of how they built their case. So Earl Simmons, a.k.a. DMX, a.k.a. X, he is the, he's a hip-hop artist who has released several albums beginning in 1997, including It's Dark and Hell is Hot, Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Blood, and then there was X, The Great Depression, and Grand Champ. Let's see. He also starred in a couple motion pictures, including Belly, Romeo Must Die, and Exit Wounds. I never saw Belly, but Romeo Must Die and Exit Wounds were definitely enjoyable flicks. Exit Wounds also has Steven Seagal, who looks like he may be facing some of his own legal issues right now, but that's a topic for another day. You do get to see Steven Seagal rip a desk in half, so I strongly recommend watching Exit Wounds for nothing else than that, because it's a fun flick. So here we get to the meat of it. He earned a bunch of money. That's what they're laying out with the jobs. High-profile albums, movies that hopefully made some money, and certainly for him. They say in or about September 2008, the IRS basically looked back at the years 2002 through 2005 and decided that DMX incurred quite a bit of tax liability. So they assessed the following amounts of tax liability for the following years, including interest and penalties. So 2002, about $650,000, 2003, about $420,000, 2004, about $442,000, and 2005, about $269,000. So this is his tax liability. Now, it does include interest, which is why the amounts do sort of scale downward, but we're talking about quite a bit of money being earned, if that is your taxes. And then having interest thrown on top of large numbers is always devastating. So his unpaid tax liabilities, and that's these numbers up here, total about $1.7 million. And then they show that during the period from 2010 through 2015, he received income of at least $2.3 million. The implication there being, why didn't he pay back the money that he owed? He was still receiving large amounts of income. And by the way, if you have back taxes, not receiving income isn't a good excuse for not paying those back taxes. They don't like that. All right. Then they have laid out a case for his corrupt efforts to impede the IRS and avoid paying taxes. So in 2010 through 2015, the period where he received $2.3 million, he failed to file personal income tax returns at all. Just don't do it. He maintained a cash lifestyle. He avoided bank accounts. He used the bank accounts of other people, stuff like that. So, next they say Simmons received hundreds of thousands of dollars of royalty income, but he had that income deposited into the bank accounts of his managers, who then dispersed it to him in cash. When he would do a performance fee, Half of the fee was paid prior to the performance, which is apparently common in the music industry, and it really should be. In case they do a last minute cancel or something that prevents the artist from performing elsewhere, and ruins their income. That's not cool. So half of the fee was paid prior to the performance, and he would have that deposited into the account of one of his managers, and then the manager would either pay him or pay for other things for him. Then the remaining half of the fee was typically received by DMX in cash at each venue on the date of performance. So he would get like a briefcase full of money. How cool is that? Like, if nothing else, you've made it when someone's bringing you a duffel bag full of like singles. At various times in the period from 2010 through 2015, business associates attempted to assist him in complying with his tax obligations, and he declined. What they're doing here is they're laying out the fact that he could have rectified this and he chose not to, so it's his fault. Then they further build this case by saying in a personal bankruptcy filing, he falsely listed his gross income as unknown for the year 2011-2012 and $10,000 for the 2013 year. Their approximations for those years, respectively, are $353,000, $542,000, and $250,000. So they got him lying on his income, based on whatever case they built. Probably people they've talked to, venues that they've investigated, records that they've checked for the payment information. Then they can assess an estimate of how much money he's made. So count 2 is the evasion of income tax evasion of payment of income taxes. As stated during 2010 to 2015, he just didn't even file. So he certainly didn't pay any taxes on those years, plus his other stuff. Count 3 through 8 is evasion of assessment of income tax liability. The reason that these are broken down 3 through 8 is each year gets its own count. Each year doing that is a criminal count. The facts are largely the same. In all of this stuff. So he didn't make an income tax return, so that's evasion of assessment of income tax liability, because you do up your return and you file it with the IRS, then they assess that liability to you and then you pay it. Usually you do it at the same time because your estimate and their estimates match up and you've made that payment if you pay into the system in that way. But if they don't, you get assessed and assessed an extra charge and you have to pay for it with some interest attached to that, and sometimes a penalty. But he just didn't pay at all. So he gets 5 extra counts there. Good job. Count 9 through 14, failure to file a U.S. individual income tax return. So this is basically a duplication of the previous charge, sort of. Like, he evades the assessment by failing to file an income tax return, but failing to file an income tax return is also a crime. So if they find that he failed to file a return, but he wasn't willfully evading, like maybe he was in a coma or something, I don't know. That's not really a good one. If he was just leaving the country around tax time and then forgot, but he wasn't willfully doing it, then they could still get him on the failure to file charges. So that's it. That's the charges. He was convicted, I believe, of just the evasion of the income tax. So not all of this stuff. The prosecutors were hoping for 5 years in prison. He was sentenced to 1 year in prison and to pay back approximately about $2.3 million in taxes and penalties. This is tough for DMX. And if you want to know why... If you want to know why this man is evading income taxes, I'm guessing he's broke. The dude has 15 kids. He has 15 kids. He outdid Old Dirty, I think. Old Dirty of what, 13? 13? DMX has 15 kids. I bet he's got no money. All of this money goes in and goes right out to child support. I think. Maybe that's an unfair assumption, but I'm guessing the 15 children are not with one person. Maybe they are. But anyway, part of the judge's, at least the defense attorney's plea was that a shorter prison sentence would allow DMX to get out of prison quicker, earn some money, and hopefully pay back some of this stuff as restitution. They also have... I believe put a restriction on his income so that any income he happens to earn from like royalties from music sales and stuff like that is actually seized immediately and goes to pay for the 15 children so that they're not unfairly burdened by their dad's mistakes. So, interesting things about this. The court allowed DMX to play a song, his song Slippin', in court right before sentencing. The defense attorney's theory was that playing that song would kind of evoke the humanity, evoke the humanity of the judge and hopefully reduce the sentence. And it may have worked, because not paying your taxes from 2002 to 2015, and then violating your parole or your probation and your voluntary release, which, by the way, if you don't know, while he was on probation awaiting trial, he left the state without permission, and he was tested positive for opioids and other stuff like that. Opiates? I think both. Doesn't matter. All of them. All the drugs. So he tested positive for drugs in violation of his probation. He may have been drinking in violation of his probation. Typically, controlled substances, probation restrictions include alcohol and other mind-altering substances. And then he left the state. So then he's actually been in jail since, I think, January because of that. So he will now remain or be transferred, one of those two, but he will remain incarcerated for a year, after which point he will be released. He will probably have a probationary period, and then he will, of course, get to start earning off some of those taxes. He will be working extra hard to pay back Uncle Sam before he gets to pay himself, and he will be under a close scrutiny. And screwing up again would not be a good idea. I do not recommend that course of action to Mr. Simmons. But anyway, just a little bit of news about a aging celebrity, which is interesting to me because how much money they make, even though, I mean, we haven't heard anything from DMX, or I have not heard anything from DMX in years. And of course, him being 47 years old, he's not really producing fresh hip-hop albums as far as I know, but he's still earning hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in income just off of royalty from his sales of albums and probably from movies. And he does do some performances, around the world, which earn him money as well. So that's the news. You've got some interesting stuff there. Tax evasion is not recommended. Do not evade taxes. Go ahead and pay them. Render unto Caesar, right? What is Caesar's? So pay your taxes. Don't be DMX in that way. And DMX, buddy, 15 kids is a lot. I don't envy any child support bills that you have to pay. Just a brief point. Typically, if you're a wealthy individual, multiple children with multiple women, for example, each child is basically held to the same standard of lifestyle. So it's not like, well, I have 15 kids and I make X amount of dollars, so they should expect that to be treated as a child, as one of 15 out of this amount of money. It's not typically that way. I believe they actually break it down by mom. So if you have like sibling groups of 2 or 3, it's going to be a little bit less. But the support for those kids is based, it's not the mom's fault that there may be other moms out there. Or I guess the dads, that it'd be weird in reverse there. But it's not the other partner's fault that there may be other partners out there that are receiving income. So it would be based largely on DMX's net income prior to any child support payments. So that is fun for him. Not in the slightest. But anyway, DMX was very repentant in court. He did plead guilty to this. And guys, sometimes the feds come at you with such overwhelming evidence, you're going to lose. So getting off of this with a year in prison and then restitution payments is actually probably a good move for DMX. So I wish him all the best. And to his cellmate, just remember, X gonna give it to you. Y'all have a good night.